Hey there! I just got a new game. It looks really awesome. Do you want to see it? I really like the cover, and from the back it looks to be the perfect difficulty. Not too easy and definitely not frustrating. Plus, you get to play as the streaking surfer himself. Let's try it out! Oh man! I'll admit, I'm not a game master now, and I definitely wasn't when I was a kid. Before the rise of the internet, there were few resources for identifying quality games. Basically, there were magazines and word of mouth. When you couldn't rely on either of those, all you had was brand recognition and the box art. Nowadays, most video games come in some sort of packaging, but perhaps that won't be the case in the future. For the most part, box art is used to draw attention to the game, but it's also supposed to give insight into and represent the game. Unfortunately, a lot of box art is incredibly deceiving. Many of us have been enticed by amazing box art into wasting money on a crappy game. Take Ikari Warriors 2 for example. Cool, you get to beat up aliens with swords and guns. Plus, there's voice and Morse code. Sounds good, right? Well, here's what you get from Morse code. That's right, the whole intro is done in Morse code and takes about 5 minutes to type out 10 lines worth of text. The game itself is nowhere near comparable to the original or the third game in the series on the NES. Other times, the box art just doesn't do the in-game graphics justice. Let's have a peek at Strider on the Sega Genesis, shall we? So in the game, he's dressed in blue, has a huge sword, and looks like a badass ninja. Now let's have a look at the box art. He looks a bit, well, lame. He doesn't look like a ninja, his sword doesn't seem nearly as cool, his hair is all wrong, and he's a bit too purple. Overall, it's rather unappealing while the game itself is really good. Look at the box art for the NES game. It isn't even a port of the arcade game like that Sega Genesis version is, and it looks great. At least the Genesis version has 8 meg of memory. Sometimes gaming box art can be flat out inaccurate to the game. This makes one think, did the box art designers even see the game or know what it was about? Take the original TMNT game for the NES. While the turtles look a bit more serious than the original cartoon characters, you can't deny that they look awesome and very well drawn. But why are they all wearing red masks? In the cartoons, movies, and games, they all have individual colors, yet here they're all wearing Raphael's color. From what I've read, this is because the box art was based off the original comic book artwork and not the cartoon, or even the sprites in the game apparently. TMNT isn't the only game where sprites differ from their box art counterparts. As I mentioned in my Double Dragon review, Billy and Jimmy's hair colors in the NES game are opposite to their colors on the box art. This time around, the box art was actually faithful to the original arcade game, and oddly enough, the error in the in-game sprites later became the standard in the franchise. They also never wear their headbands in any of the games. The last two examples don't overly misrepresent the game, but it may have caused someone to question the game's quality. Sometimes the box art contains mistakes that you wouldn't recognize until having played through the game. Chrono Trigger has amazing box art, but you never fight this baddie in a snowscape, and Marl doesn't have fire magic and certainly never wears a coat. Other than that, the characters are accurate to how they appear in the game. This type of misrepresentation is more interesting than it is misleading. Chrono Trigger is still a cartoony game where you beat up monsters with swords and magic. Other box art looks nothing like the game. I don't know who came up with this box art for Galaxian. Don't you shoot bug-like creatures in this game? When did the crazy armored angels show up? Check out the original Bomberman. He definitely looks cool, but a bit far from his appearance in the game. Later releases would be much more accurate. So cute! Except that one. On the PC, you have the legendary game Wolfenstein 3D. In-game, your character BJ Blazkowicz is of an average build and is wearing what looks to be a grey prisoner's uniform. On the box art, you get a rather generic, shirtless, headband-wearing, Rambo-like super soldier, which was pretty typical for most gunner action games of the 80s and early 90s. Once again, did the box art designer ever see the game? Or perhaps the marketing people felt the game would sell better with a bit of an image change. Whatever the reason, I'm sure very few people were disappointed with this game, even after being lured in by its deceiving box art. Ever since video games started being distributed in different regions, some publishers have felt the need to alter the box art to better market the game towards that specific population. This has created some interesting results. I can't speak on behalf of Europe, but it wasn't uncommon to find older games that were originally developed in Japan to be distributed in North America with totally uninspiring, lazy, and just plain bad box art. This trend continues today with the release of newer games, such as Trauma Center. Can you see the difference? These more recent regional differences in the box art show how it is just as important of a marketing tool today as it's ever been. Can you imagine if the box art for Assassin's Creed 2 looked like this? Well, it wasn't always uncommon to find box art that only consisted of in-game graphics, pixels and all. Other titles would show the arcade cabinet or mention its previous arcade success. Some would even feature the game designer's face right on the box. I guess this could be a good way to identify what games were made by your favorite designer, but it obviously didn't catch on. It will be interesting to see what direction box art will take in the future. No matter what path it takes, thankfully we now have countless reviewers on the internet who are happy to tell us what games are worth buying, so we no longer have to waste our money on a pretty picture. Happy gaming!